their discomfort in facing that kind of pressing from even the weakest opponents in the group. Thailand would have taken note by their coaching staff while they were watching this match. And this will be a headache for Nafuzi to solve before that final game on Tuesday. Otherwise, all in, a good performance, an excellent result, a perfect response to the defeat, but the job is not done yet. They have to beat Thailand to keep those hopes alive. After losing 0-1 to Lebanon in their opening AFC Under-23 Asian Cup qualifying Group F encounter, Malaysia Under-23s had to respond and did so in emphatic fashion as they thumped Mongolia by 7 clear goals without reply to keep themselves in contention in qualifying for the 2026 finals in Saudi Arabia. Fergus Tierney led the way with a hat-trick, while Alif Izwan scored a brace and provided an assist and was unlucky not to score a hat-trick himself when his late direct free kick hit against the crossbar. The other 2 goals were scored by defender Asya Hadi and substitute Zaid Al-Bashir in what was a one-sided game where Mongolia barely had a sniff at the Malaysian goal. It was a dominant display from start to finish to give Nafuzi Zain some breathing space ahead of their do-or-die finale against group host Thailand at Thammasat Stadium on Tuesday. With those 3 points in the bag, at least the young Tigers can breathe slightly easier after what was almost a perfect response to a disappointing defeat to their first opponents, Lebanon. And they did not take long to open the rout as Alif Izwan fired home Malaysia's first goal of the campaign when he latched on the Mongolians goalkeeper's spill off an earlier shot to step home into an empty net. This was followed by a second goal, this time by Asya when he headed home off a corner at the far post to extend the lead. Then it was the Fergus Tierney show, where Fergus scored the first of his hat-trick when he positioned and timed his run perfectly to head home across from Shafizan Arshad, who crossed from the left to deliver that assist for that to make it 3 goals to the good at the break. Then, just after the start of the second half, before the 50th minute mark, Tierney completed his hat-trick, both with good, well-placed right foot shots. The first came 2 minutes after the restart when he broke past the defense to meet a forward header by halftime substitute Shuku Faiz and slotted the ball calmly past the despairing reach of the unfortunate Mongolian keeper Khan Tehin Ordekiu. And 2 minutes later, he brought home the match ball. Once again, with another solid right-footed finish, this time with ample space to burst into the box and finish off the through ball from Muhammad Khalil to make it 5 goals to the good for Malaysia and game set and match for the young Tigers. With 3 points already in the bag, Malaysia definitely dropped a gear or 2, but still kept up their dominance overall. And just at the hour mark, it was 6 goals to the good when Alif Izwan again, who smashed home from a distance after being afforded the space on the center left area of the box. I mean, the Mongolian defending for much of this match they were unable to respond effectively to the more critical attacking areas and issues that the Malaysian strikers were posing for much of this game. More about that later. Then there was actually the 7th goal on the 69th minute. Substitute Zaid Al-Bashir, who rifled home from some distance outside the box. After, once again, it was the work of Shuku who really started this route to the 7th and final goal of the game, when he actually dispossessed, he forced a turnover in the final third, laid the pass for Alif, who showed some ingenuity to create the pass which provided the space and opening for Al-Bashir to slam home that goal. It was a pretty good goal for some distance. And to be fair to the Young Tigers, it shouldn't have stayed at 7 goals. They could and were a little unfortunate not to have extended their lead as the minutes tick away towards the final whistle. You will have Shuko who was quite outstanding in the second half after coming on as a halftime substitute. He got past his marker, but he was unfortunate not to get his shot on target. It went wide, despite being afforded space after he just managed to evade his marker, or rather the Mongolian defense to do so. And once again, Shuko was once again at the heart of the action as well when when the Johor Darul Taksim 2 attacker was unfortunate not to be awarded a penalty when after he was actually body checked down into the box by a Mongolian defender. Unfortunately for this qualifier series, there's no virtual assistant referee, so in this case what happens was it was a case of the referee clearly missing this incident. It should have been a penalty for the Malaysia under-23s at the 90th minute. Had that been allowed, it could have been 8 goals to the good. It would have been more. Really, it could have been more. I mean, 2 minutes into added time, direct free kick close to at the dangerous area. Alif Izwan took the free kick, almost went in. The crossbar denied him in joining Fergus in collecting the match ball after this game. So overall, all set in order, after describing the motions, after describing the goals, how they were set up, it is pretty telling that Malaysia went in with a clear offensive plan. They knew that the opponents were much weaker compared to Lebanon. Definitely they have had some experience playing against Southeast Asian minors, so they knew how to deal with Mongolia at this level. And more crucially, because of the lessons, probably some of the lessons they had when playing in the AFF Under-23 Championships a couple of months back, where they also defeated the only minor in their group, Brunei, 6 goals to 1. But in that game, despite scoring the goals, Nafuzi Zain's Young Tigers were found quite wanting in defense, as they allowed Brunei a number of dangerous opportunities then, and also, to make things worse, they allowed the Young Wasps to score their only goal of the tournament late in the second half. This time, Malaysia Under-23s clearly avoided this fate. They kept a clean sheet. This would have given their defense some confidence despite a number of shaky encounters, especially in the second half, when Mongolia at times still look a little dangerous, even though they were already by then 5 goals behind. They knew that they were underdogs. They knew that they were weaker and more inferior than the than the eventual winners. But the Mongolians did not give up then yet. They actually showed at times some enterprising play. They knew that Malaysia were not that comfortable playing the ball at their feet when they were under immense some pressure. And this was evident in the way how Malaysia played at times when Mongolia really put their men close to the heart of Malaysia's defense, and the young Tigers had to scramble to clear the ball away or to make quick, at times still had to up their game to make quick transition movements in order to find the space for themselves to counter instead of idling around and hoping for some slip up and all that, because they didn't clearly the Malaysian defense did not want to repeat the same mistakes as they did against Lebanon, particularly in the latter stages of the game when that one lapse of concentration allowed Lebanon to score the winning goal. This time round, they prevented Mongolia from finding the back of the net altogether, even though their goalkeeper Zuhumi Sharani had to make a few saves to keep the Mongolians at bay. He had to work to earn that clean sheet, as much as it was a largely one-way traffic for the young Tigers. And for Nafuzi Zain's men, it was the response, the result, the performance they wanted, they needed it, and they achieved them all after that loss. So it gives them some confidence in keeping their slim hopes of qualifying for Saudi Arabia 2026 alive, and for Nafuzi Zain to keep his place in the hot seat for now. Yes, that victory gave vindication of what he was trying to do for much of this year since taking on the job at the start of the calendar year. But having lost to certain opponents of similar abilities or higher, question marks had begun to creep in on Nafuzi. So against Mongolia, even though they were not in Southeast Asia, the response the players showed, the response the players had was actually sufficient to help Malaysia deliver their best single match performance ever since the former Terengganu head coach took charge in his first national team coach role. Now, what about the players who were outstanding? Fergus Tierney and Alif Izwan. They were really superb up front, especially the man of the match, Tierney. Tierney, who is born in Malaysia with Scottish blood, but has chosen since to pledge his allegiance to the nation of his birth, and also has already featured for Harimau Malaysia. He has contributed immensely. It's not just about his high work rate as we have already known him by now, but also we saw tonight or this evening his finishing, his positioning, and his willingness to work that make him easily and by a long mile the most fouled player of the match. Even late in the game when he was on the pitch, they were still body checking him, the Mongolians. That was how desperate they were to try to keep him out of the game after he scored a hat-trick. And Fergus himself nearly had a fourth goal, almost, when he managed to evade his marker for once late in the final quarter of the game, turned past him, had a chance at goal, just a few inches away above the bar. Could have been under the bar, but just inches away. As it is, football is a game of taking your chances. Fergus took quite a number of chances well. That's why he's got a hat-trick. Alif Izwan was superb in playing on the wings, and he not only contributed 2 goals but also provided 2 assists in playing a pivotal role alongside Fergus in the in the forward front three line. And with the Alif and Tierney combination working so well, Mongolia had a sleepless 90 minutes night, trying to keep both of them at bay, and also contending with quite a number of very intelligent plays in the final third at times that left the Mongolians pretty confused, because in trying to close down one Malaysian player, they did not realize that they were actually leaving space for the cleverer young Tigers to exploit, especially in the number of goals that they scored. What they did was to find that space to unleash their shots, whether it was inside the box or outside or from distance. The young Malaysians found a way to find the back of the net through various means. In a way, it's pretty good news for Nafuzi, because it shows that when placed with a perfect opportunity, these players know how to shoot. And at least in having 4 different goal scorers, Nafuzi knows that he can not just call upon Tierney and Alif Izwan, but also a number of other players who can stand up and be countered when you need to take chances from distance, particularly late in the game. Sure, the Mongolian defense was weak. They were inferior compared to the more powerful and talented young Malaysians forward line and midfield. Sure, the Mongolians were at times naive in their defending and found themselves outwitted, not just by their positioning, but also by the sheer pace of the young Malaysian forwards. And that was the real foundation in which Nafuzi's boys sealed their win in style and kept their slim hopes of qualifying for the under-23 finals in Saudi Arabia next year alive, still ahead of their final group game against Thailand. But was it a totally perfect performance? A few players were perfect. Tierney and Alif Izwan, they were fantastic. How about the others? Their number 9, as I mentioned earlier, their number 9, Shukul Faris, the Johor Darul Taksim 2 striker. He was excellent in linking up with Fergus and also with Alif when he was on the pitch in the second 45 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, he was pretty active for much of that period when he was entrusted by Nafuzi to make a bigger difference, causing more havoc, or rather more headaches for the Mongolians. It was not just his physical frame that gave the Mongolians a lot of headaches, but it was his movement, it was his positioning, it was his vision, his ability to take some load off Tierney by getting the Mongolian defenders to draw close to him instead. And it was his vision that allowed Tierney to score the second goal of the game. It was also his vision that allowed Alif Izwan to receive the pass from him and to lay up for Zaid to finish off their 7th and final goal. And as I also mentioned, even in the goal build-up, Shukul was so active that eventually the Mongolian defenders had to try every little trick on their book to try to stop him from playing the game. They almost succeeded. He did not score, yes, but if there had been VAR in those qualifiers, Malaysia would have gotten a penalty in the 90th minute when he was body checked and crashed. He did not dive. He was body checked into crashing on the ground by the sheer force of the Mongolian defender. The Mongolian defender was not going out to win the ball when you look at the replays, but it was Shukul who was causing so much problems with his control, with his positioning, with his feints, with his ability to make the runs in the final third. That totally overwhelmed the Mongolians. That provided a lot of relief for the other players who were then in the first 45 minutes relying quite a bit on Tierney and Alif Izwan to shoulder the burden of Malaysia's attacks. So Shuko deserves special mention for praise for his outstanding contributions in the 45 minutes. He could have had a goal himself. Pretty unfortunate, but he deserved praise alongside Tierney and Alif Izwan. Now, what about the defense? They did well actually. They largely kept the Mongolians at bay. They largely restricted the Mongolians to shots outside the box, but there were a few moments where where Suhimi Sharani had to be alert to keep that clean sheet when his defense were drawn into the occasional sixes and sevens being drawn out, or being, you can say, struggling to cope with their, you can say, when they change a gear below, they didn't go beyond the second gear or even the first gear, but they struggle when the occasion required them to stand up for it. It's like when the Mongolians were, for periods of time in second half, were trying to put a lot of pressure by being quite physically that close in their pressing to the Malaysian defenders. Yes, it did force them to be ingenious with their ball control to play their way out of danger, but at times they just had little choice but to hack the ball away. Although they didn't dilly-dally on those occasions, but their discomfort in facing that kind of pressing from even the weakest opponents in the group, Thailand would have taken note by their coaching staff while they were watching this match. And this will be a headache for Nafuzi to solve before that final game on Tuesday. Otherwise, all in, a good performance, an excellent result, a perfect response to the defeat, but the job is not done yet. They have to beat Thailand to keep those hopes alive. And they not only have to beat Thailand, they probably had to do better than just scoring that one goal against Thailand. Maybe it may come to goal difference. Maybe it may come to the goals scored against one another if it is a three-way deadlock between Thailand, Malaysia and Lebanon. And when that happens, Malaysia have to score the goals. They now have the players to do it. But when up against a different higher level of opponents after Mongolia, can they keep up that level will be a huge question that needs answering. If Fergus Tierney and Alif Izwan could do the trick again, we are not expecting another hat-trick. But if somehow it happens, then it will be the question of why the Thai defenders were so weak. But we know Thailand are not a weak team in this group. They are one of the stronger teams and traditional rivals as well. So in this context, a win is vital. And it's not just a win, but also a few goals to ensure that Nafuzi keeps his job. Because if they fail to qualify for the AFC Under-23s, at least Nafuzi's young Malaysians must avoid defeat. A loss though would definitely make his position untenable, and the former Terengganu man may be out of a job after just 9 months into it, and that may cause a headache for the semi-autonomous Harimau Malaysia outfit, because that would mean they'll need to scramble for a new head coach just a few months before the Southeast Asia Games Under-23 tournament, in which Thailand will be hosting at the end of the year. And that will be a dilemma they'd rather not have. This will be a dilemma that only these young Tigers can solve, at least with a draw, even if they do not qualify, to show that at least these young Tigers are at least still in with a chance of cementing their place among the top 4 in Southeast Asia, at least position themselves as serious medal contenders for the men's Under-23 football tournament when the games kick off in December in Thailand. And should they achieve at least a draw, or even better, a win with a few goals along the way to qualify, then Nafuzi's job is safe. A defeat though, this will be the end for Nafuzi as Malaysia's under 23 head coach.